Greetings YouTube and welcome to the Blue Corner into a Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile and breakdown of what I played at Regionals this past weekend in Calgary, where I was able to get my invite. I ended up finishing in the top 8 at 6th place out of roughly 69 people. Nice. And yeah, I ended up going X2 after Swiss, with my losses being to the first place, who was undefeated, and the second place, who had only lost to the first place. So pretty good tiebreakers, which is something I never thought I'd say, because most of the time it's if I lose to people, the tiebreakers end up being rough. Like I've had both times I've tried playing Necros at regionals, and the last time I played Voiceless Voice at regionals, I bubbled out like at 9th or 10th. So I was really concerned that that was going to happen again with Voices, because go figure, I played like the ritual archetype deck, and then I proceed to bubble every time I play with it. So the fact I didn't the second time around with Voices is reassuring. The fact I was able to get the Voiceless Voice mat with Voiceless Voice is also pretty cool. I really wanted to get this mat more than anything else. Winning the top 4 deck box would be nice too, because I don't have the kind that they're giving out. When I got my top with Mikanko last year, they didn't have that deck box in stock at the time. So we ended up getting another one of these, which is, this is the one I got with Thunder Dragon, so I have a second copy of that one. Nice. So I'll get it someday, I hope, before I'm completely done with this game. And but for the time being, though, yeah, I got the Voiceless mat, which is what I wanted more, because it's a play mat of a ritual monster, and I've been trying to collect all the ones that have been made so far. I've got the one for BLS Super Soldier, I've got the one for the Mikanko monsters, that was the Nats mat, and I've got this. I'm missing 1 or 2 at this point, I think, and I will hopefully get them at some point. But yeah, I'm glad I got that done. This is also like my second time I've managed to get an invite with the Vanguard deck box too. Like this Dragon Empire deck box seems to be like a lucky charm or something. So yeah, that's a thing. And then Anya field marker, and then the Vanguard cards here as tokens. Someone pointed out in one of the profiles I did for Dead Draw that's like, hey, nice Vanguard monsters. I was like, yep. These are in here because they're a memento of a friend who is no longer with us, and Shadow Paladin was his favorite deck, and he had gotten a playset of SP Revenger Legions, and when his best friend, who's also one of my friends, was given his stuff, he decided to like give each 4 of us, including himself, 1 pair of Legions as a memento to have them alongside, in a sense. So yeah, it was really cool to bring these along and get the regional invite with him, because it was, yeah, it was like as if Nubs was giving me a hand. So shout out to Nubs for that. Miss you, buddy. So yeah, with that being said, I'll just go into the profile, and then I'll highlight some things I may change, and then I'll go and do a breakdown of how my rounds went. So for the deck itself, I ended up playing pure Voiceless because I couldn't hammer out a melodious list that I liked, and the branded version I was on till the last minute, but decided to just switch to pure because pure was just playing better in my hands. But I will admit that both builds probably would have maybe done the same, because like in the branded version I was playing, I had actually cut this package like a couple of people have been doing to play the branded cards. And like I hadn't really missed a Diviner when I was doing that. And there were definitely games where like I'm staring at low and Diviner in my hand, I'm thinking, man, this Diviner could have been a branded fusion. Because like, I know people will say, but Diviner does so much, and yeah, it does. But we're in a format where like Diviner is a lot easier to get hit by hand traps, whereas low is at least immune to Ash. So whereas if I summon Diviner and it gets negated, I'm like sad. But if I summon low and it gets negated, I still have Branded Fusion in my hand, or I go Branded Fusion and they use the Ash on that, or the Imperm or Veiler, the Albion, and I just summon low and go from there. So we'll see how that goes. But Diviner is in my hand quite often, and Trias allowed me to dodge some stuff. When they resolve, they're obviously very good. I do admit the Chaos Angel that you can summon with the Diviner line came up once for an OTK line, but Saphira, Old Man, surprisingly enough, I didn't brick on him as much as other people have in the past. Then for ritual monsters, still the 4, 2 Skull Guardian, 2 Saravis. I ended up playing Pendulum Graph inside because whether or not you main 2 Saravis or not comes down to how much fire decks you expect to see. I knew at this regional there'd be some amount of Tempai, but I expected it to be more Snake Eyes heavy, because Calgary is one of the more competitive areas. I know of, and I figured there'd be a lot of people on Snake Eyes variants, and that was basically the case because I played against 3 Snake Eyes decks and only 1 Tenpai deck, and the double Sarvis matters a lot more in those matchups. Then for the spells, low targets, 3 copies of Barrier, 1 copy of Blessing. Blessing is insane. Some people still don't quite know what this card does, so I'll just read it out. So it's a once per turn. You can add a Voiceless from your graveyard or your banish back to your hand except itself. And also as a once per turn, if either player summons a non-ritual monster, you can perform a ritual summon of a dragon or warrior light monster from your hand by attributing monsters you control or in your hand. And then the monster summoned by this effect can't be killed in battle. So it is very similar to Branded Regained in that it is a +1 every turn and allows you to play on your opponent's turn 2. They come in a board, you summon a monster out, and your monsters are pretty impactful. Being able to get a second use out of this, or to summon a Skull Guardian that's been sitting in your hand because you got debarriered, is very, very good. Or the Odd Eyes Pendulum Graph Dragon. And 1 copy of the Trap. This, unfortunately, I drew a fair amount, and I was forced to just have it sit in my hand and then set it going into the next turn, because you really want to have Trap face up going into the turn, so you can at least have the option of either the summon or the pop. But more often than not, I ended up using its effect to summon or search way more than the pop effect. The pop effect did come up a couple times though. 2 copies of Prayer. The graveyard effect of this came up a good amount because I had almost every Snake Eyes player I went up against popped Skull Guardian with Promethean Princess when it hit the board rather than the low. So I was like, cool, banish, summon another copy of Skull Guardian, and now low's in play, so I've got set up. And now that you can add this back off of Blessing is really cool. And then for remaining stuff, 3 copies of pre-prep. You can play 2 if you want. I was at 43 cards, so I figured the 3rd pre-prep really wasn't going to make a difference. Or rather, the 3rd one wasn't going to brick me more. Just because I figured, since I'm already on 43, and my deck's fairly consistent of what it does. Like, Voiceless is one of those decks where like you have a whole lot of cards that do a lot of the same thing, so it's alright if you go above 40 with this deck. I wouldn't go more than 45, but like Low, Diviner, Barrier, Pre-Prep, Saphira, a lot of them just share the same effect. And then my last spell card was Pot of Prosperity. I'm playing this card at 3 in as many decks as I can until it gets hit. Pretty straightforward. The dig for 6 in a deck like this is fantastic. Then for the non-ancient, for the not so much as seen stuff, 3 Fenrir, 3 Droll, then the more common ones, 3 Ash, 3 Imperm, and 3 Ogre. Ash and Imperm, not much to really say. They're probably the 2 best hand traps in this current format. Ogre is really good when it's paired with other hand traps like Imperm or Ash. Droll was a pick at my friend's suggestion, as he said that Fire plays into Droll a bit more now, and then there's just those matchups where like Droll just completely craps on. There was a Drytron player present in the room. He ended up finishing 7th, and Droll's obviously very good against that matchup. And I wanted to respect decks like Manadium, which Droll's strong against, so it's like, alright, I'll play Droll. And then Fenrir was Nibiru until the day before, but my friend mentioned how well Fenrir was working for him in his testing, and he was on Tenpai Dragon, and like his reasoning makes sense. It's a breaker card that also does something going first, and Fenrir, much like Nibiru, at worst can be tributed for a ritual summon because level 7 body. So I'm not disappointed in him, and it is sad that you summon him and Fire can immediately get rid of it, but if you look at it the other way, you summon Fenrir, that means Fire basically has to waste a Promethean Princess or their IP on it before you get the search, which means that they can't use that on your other plays, like the Promethean Princess Pop Skull Guardian play, or you play Barrier down and they banish it with IP into SP. So yeah, I can't really complain. Fenrir helped with some games too. Then for the extra deck, we've got my Diviner targets, Herald and Entis. I think I sent Herald once, Entis not really. For Synchros, Odd Eyes Meteor Burst Dragon, and Chaos Angel. Went to both of these. Chaos Angel a couple times and it did matter, and Meteor Burst Dragon I summoned against Tenpai and was able to protect it. If you can do that, you have a very good chance of actually beating the deck, because if they can't negate this thing or get it off the board, then they can't do anything in battle phase and you just beat them. Then for Xyz monsters, played Typhon. I summoned it once, but the game was already at a point where it didn't matter. Fuko, for one, I get shifted. The one time I did, though, I had already drawn the trap, so I couldn't actually set it up. And then for the Link monsters, we'll start off with the ones I actually did use. I summoned this once or twice. I summoned IP a couple times. SP came up once. Dynamondo came up a good amount too. I ended up doing SP and Dynamondo in the same turn to just completely break apart a fireboard, which was really cool. And then Dynamondo tagged out on their turn and they didn't have an answer to it. And then as far as the links I was playing, but I didn't actually end up using, 2 Charmers, being Lina and Dark. I was debating on Hita, but I didn't have the space for it. I wanted to have the Fuko instead. Not that it mattered, because I ended up just banishing all these off Prosperity, but the Charmers are in here, so I can Celine using Droll and Lockbird, which I keep having to remind myself is a spellcaster, because originally I had Veiler in here, but I cut Veiler, but I had Droll in here still, so Celine had a target. Funnily enough, though, I had a couple people look at my graveyard and go, any Darks in there? And I was like, nope. Any Fires in there? Not at this moment. So I was like, that's kind of funny how like this deck can like inadvertently like turn off Dark, which is one of the more common ones. Then Access Code, the point of the Celine, and Underworld Goddess to 1. Play through talents if you have a specific setup, which is IP with Trap and Old Man, and they commit a monster to the board. Otherwise, you just do something else. Otherwise, IP will go into SP or Dynamondo on their turn. And then you can also, I'm also have this in here to just out problematic monsters, things that can't be killed in battle, because this deck, its main deck relies on negation and beating over in battle and popping to remove problematic monsters. But if a monster can't be killed, period, it's annoying. And I rely on my extra deck to out those other cards. Then for the side deck, we'll start with the one-offs. First off, Vendrick Dragon. I brought him in a couple times, especially for Tenpai. He's obviously good against Branded because it can negate Branded Fusion, negates the effect too, so you can get it through Branded Lost. Then it tags out into Meteor Burst Dragon, which is great for Tenpai and some other random decks. I even scaled him a couple times just so I can search the ritual spell so that I can shuffle it back in with the trap card to summon Sarvis from the deck, which was pretty neat. And the burn effect also comes up, but also he helps protect your back row post side because he is a means to answer things like Storm and Droplet. Not Storm and Droplet. I mean Storm and Duster. Droplet does suck to be hit by, but I only got Droplet a couple times, and they would Droplet Skull Guardian. Mind you, I never. No. When I had Pendulum Dragon, they didn't have Droplet, so I'm kind of like going on a side tangent there, but yeah. He helps protect insulate your boards better going first, post side, and him being a burn card also kind of comes up because I've noticed, like, especially against fire decks, if you go into game 3 and you're on the play and you set up a decent board, unless they open the absolute nuts, it takes them a good amount of summons and plays to try and crack your board to attempt to kill you, and you're gonna get those burn effects off. Auto as Pendulum Graft Dragon or Dogwood, even Mourner to a degree. Like and if tying is looming, which happens a lot in my Snake Eyes matchups, you might actually have the chance to just get the win because of the life point lead. Like I've considered Spooky Dogwood for my locals because I have Snake Eyes players that take like 5 minutes to try and crack the Voiceless Fort setup, and that's assuming, and that's with like some other interruptions. Then remaining one-ofs. Anti-spell fragments. I wanted something to prevent me from being blown out by Storm and Duster, and to drop the twos to some degree. Like I had Solemns at first because it answers though, but I also didn't want to risk Solemning a Droplet and then or a Duster and getting blown out in time. So I went with the anti-spell. Plus I had 1 slot left in my side deck, and anti-spell backed up by Skull Guardian or Odd Eyes is pretty strong, especially since you can play around it with your engines in low places. Other blowout one of, there can only be one. Yeah, this card just absolutely craps all over certain decks that are monotyped. Melodious, they're all fairy. Fiend Pile, they're all fiends. Tenpai Dragon, they're all dragons. If you can flip Takobo and protect it, it's very difficult from the out if they can't if they didn't see any of their back row, because all they can summon, they can't even summon their non-tuner in their tuner. Like some Tenpai lists can, because they can just go Fenrir, summon, and then go into something else. But now that Baron's gone, it's not as easy to out. So I had this up against Tenpai backed with Skull Guardian, and it was pretty good. Even against Labyrinth, I flipped this up against Labyrinth, and it stopped him from like completely establishing his board, and kind of mattered. Like they can only summon the one Lady Labyrinth under this. Not so great against fire, but that's to be expected. And then there's just some decks that just don't care about it at all. But yeah, I wanted to have auto and blowouts. It's an idea I got from talking to one of my friends, where you just have like those cards that just completely like win you the game if you see them, even if they are Saki 1-ofs. Speaking of things that can win the game, D-Barrier. I didn't flip it up myself, but I did get it flipped on me a couple times. Yeah, I'm pretty sick of this card at this point. It can go, please. 3 copies of Cosmic. Card was very good. I hit a lot of things with it. Ubel, Labyrinth even. I brought it in. I would bring it in for the Fire King Snake Eyes. I don't know so much about Cure over hand traps, but I like the fact that it's something you can use going first and going second. Yeah, I don't regret this card at all. Very good. Droplet. I was debating between this and there can only Dark Ruler No More, but as another friend put out, if you're using Dark Ruler against Snake Eyes, it's not the greatest, because they can still like summon IP out of the spell trap zone with the field spell. And against Snake Eyes, if you break their board, you basically have to kill them as soon as you can, because they just bring out their board and they can blow you up, and you can't afford to play that kind of longer game with them, because they can overwhelm you with so many bodies. And yeah, I just wanted something that could like out problematic monsters, good for the mirror, good for Melodious and various decks, and it did come up. Like I won a game off of Forbidden Drop. And then lastly, 3 copies of Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill. So this was originally meant to be Bell, and it was going to be Bell, but I forgot to actually swap them out before going to sleep. So when I woke up and I saw this on my side, I'm like, oh, guess I'm going with Mourner, and then I wrote it down. Then about a round and a half in, I'm like, oh, I meant to have Bell, because I wanted something that could stop annoying things like Gimmick Puppet Locking, or Bestials, or cards summoning out of the graveyard, which is what Bell's good for. Instead we have Moonlit Chill, which isn't bad either. Like I did go with Moonlit Chill for a bit because I liked it over Veiler as something I could use to negate things not only outside of the main phase, but also under Shifter, which Veiler can't do. And I figured I'd see, like again, Tenpai, which would Shifter me, and I can at least use Veiler in battle phase, or not Mourner in battle phase, depending on the setup. When the life point reducer thing can also come up, and it actually did. So that is the deck in a nutshell. Just give me a sec to readjust the camera, and then I'll go over the round by rounds. Alright, so as far as the tournament itself goes, like I said earlier, it was approximately 69 people, and which meant 7 rounds of Swiss for Calgary. Seems to be about the average size, maybe a little bit less people than usual because it was a Victoria Day weekend, so some people were just not in town. It was a trip getting there. We left Regina at about 6 or 6:30, and we didn't get till Calgary by about 2:30 in the morning, and then we proceeded to get up and out to the venue by around by 9:30. So give or take, I think I had maybe 4 hours of sleep going to this, so that's fun. Thank God I played the Voiceless voice deck and not, say, Branded. Oh man, could you imagine trying to play Branded on 4 hours of sleep and nothing else? Oh, someday maybe. But yeah, so that was a thing. Round 1, I got paired up against Snake Eyes Mikanko, which is a pure irony given that, you know, I'm a person who is an advocate of Mikanko. We're almost exactly a year removed from when I got my invite with Mikanko, but it was a completely different build because, you know, Snake Eyes wasn't available yet. As far as that version of the deck goes, I think it is the best version of Mikanko, rather than trying to blind second and get the cheese OTKs now. But, you know, that's also kind of a more pricey build of the deck. I knew he was on it because when I sat down with the guy, he had custom mat and sleeves of like the girls for the mat and Ohime for sleeves. I'm like, yes, someone else who is based. And we just proceeded to talk a little bit, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I brought my Ohime mat for this. And I was like, then the round started. I won the die roll, and I go, do I really want to go first? But I was like, you know what, I'm going to, because I figured the chances of him being on Snake Eyes was pretty good, and if he was on blind second Mikanko, the Voiceless voice board, if I see the like a good amount of non-engine, I get my full combo off, should actually be able to like defeat Mikanko unless I open with specifically Lava Golem, because you bounce, they can't target my stuff, and like if they bounce Skull Guardian away, I can just summon another one with the virtual spell. So yeah, I go first. I open them pretty strongly. It was like was it strongly? No, it was adequately. I ended on Skull IP, I think Trap. I have an Ash in hand, and on his turn I'm able to summon Skull Guardian and such. So yeah, I've got like Skull Guardian, Trap, Ash Blossom in hand, and like he starts doing Mikanko's. He leads off with Prep. For some reason I Ash it when I really should have just Ashed the Ohime, but I don't get punished for him by having a second Prep. So yeah, I stop him from like doing that part, and eventually he starts doing Snake Eye stuff, so I have to hold my Skull Guardian negate. I've got Barrier up, so it's not like he can, you know, use the Snake Eyes engine to remove my cards, and eventually gets to a point where he summons Huli and tries to equip onto it, and for a brief moment I make the mistake of going, oh, I'm going to use the Trap the Pop. I was like, wait a second, I can't even do that, so I negate the equip spell with Skull Guardian, and then I eventually use Trap the Pop. I think it was like Huli in his set, and oh my, voice is going on me. Yeah, I use Trap the Pop his board, and then I kill him. And then game 2, he goes first. He starts doing Snake Eyes combo, and then for game 2, he goes first. He does Snake Eyes combo. My hand is Droplet, Ghost Ogre, and I think double Barrier and a pre-prep, so I basically only have like one interrupt for his turn, and the Ogre I figure I'm going to have to just hold for when he starts doing the Mikanko combo. So he ends up with like the IP in the back row, and the Promethean Princess in the graveyard, and eventually starts doing Mikanko stuff. He eventually summons Hare and equips an Aberrask onto it to search something. He searches my Washidori or something, and when he goes to use Aberrask, I Ghost Ogre the Aberrask so he can't get the Huli, and since I kept him off Huli, he doesn't search the trap card, which makes his board easier to deal with. He ends up passing with Ohime and Hare, but as far as I know, no sets as far as I know, and like a card in hand. I know it's not a hand trap because on my turn, I'm able to force him to use the IP by placing Barrier. He banishes it, so I place another Barrier. He's like, oh, and then I use pre-prep to search the Skull Guardian. I think I opened with Diviner. Yeah, I think I opened Diviner because I summon Diviner, I do the thing, and then I summon. I use Prayer to summon Skull Guardian. He hits the board, and then he uses the Promethean Princess. Oh, that's right. I had Diviner use its effect, and he tried to use SP to banish it off, and I opened with a Saurus as well and negated the SP. That was it. So yeah, the Diviner stayed on board safely, and yeah, I summon Skull Guardian. He pops up with Medium Princess. Summon another one off the ritual spell, and then I'm looking at my hand. I look at the board. I'm like, I can kill him with this hand by using low to place Blessing Gout to grab back the Skull Guardian, because I can summon the second Skull Guardian because I have a card in my hand that I can just sack off for it. So that's what I do. I end up linking low off for Anima, which triggers Blessing to summon the Skull Guardian that I added back off Blessing out. So I have 2 Skull Guardians and an Anima. I use the Anima to suck up something, and then I move into battle phase, and I declare the attack on a Mikanko. He's like, okay. Then I droplet, send 2 off, negate both of his Mikankos, and then swing for 41 and 41, and he's dead. So, yeah, I OTK'd Mikanko twice. That was funny. Now, the next round is up against Tenpai Dragon, and it's my friend Nord who came up with the card with, so that's unfortunate. You don't really want to face any of your teammates at a regionals, but it's a thing. I think I've had 9 matches against my friends at regionals now, so or at least 9 matches against people from the hometown. As far as my actual friend group goes, I think it's closer to 5, but regardless, I know what he's on. He knows what I'm on. I know what kind of Tenpai Dragon he's on, so even if I make him go first, he can still set up a board that will be annoying to deal with, because he's running less breakers, or he was running less breakers and more hand traps. And yeah, I just decided, you know what, I'll go first to set up my board, because if Voiceless, depending on what kind of hand traps he has, if Voiceless is able to completely go off and set up they're a strong board, you can make Tenpai fight hard to the point where they can't kill you. They can still break your board, but they can't OTK you, and then you have the chance to get them on the clapback. So that's what I try to go for. Unfortunately, my hand is probably the weakest I had seen that day, where it's I open with Fenrir, Diviner, I think Skull Guardian, and what else? I just know it's a hand where the Diviner gets negated, and I have nothing else to do aside from just sit on Diviner, Fenrir, and trap card pass, and he summons his own Fenrir, so that basically cancels on my Fenrir. Then he's got Lightning Storm to just wipe out my back row, and I forget what else happens here. I just know he has the hand that kills me. So I'm okay, game 2. Game 2, I go first, and I open a much better hand. I think I power through 1 hand trap. I know I'm able to end my board with Skull Guardian, Odd Eyes Pendulum Graph Dragon in my hand to go onto his turn, Blessing, Trap, and there can only be 1. I opened with Takobo, which I sided for this matchup, and it mattered because on his turn, I'm able to summon Pendulum Graph Dragon, and then have it tag out to Meteor Burst Dragon, and then I flip up to Kobo when he tries to do more, and he can't break through all of that and sweeps. Game 3, he makes me go first and shifters me. So I'm oh. And I opened with the trap card, so I can't make Fuko under shifter, which is even worse. So I have to settle for using Fenrir to grab another Fenrir. I'm still able to set up Skull Guardian, low, trap, Blessing, and Barrier, I believe. Yeah, I think I got it. It's unfortunate that I have no graveyard at the moment. So that board has to get me there, and then he super pulls in standby for Mud Dragon. Oh, so now the Fenrir can't really do a whole lot, at least not to his dragons. But I still have Trap and a card to shuffle back, so I eventually summon Old Man from the deck on his turn, who tags into Sarvis, and from that point, it's difficult for him to crack my board and kill me through Fenrir and a Sarvis negate, knowing that it can potentially come back down. So what happens, because Tenpai can play around Sarvis, but they have to summon their monster on Chainlink 2, and you can't, and he wanted the Black Rose Dragon me, but he can't as Chainlink 2 or higher, because then the Black Rose misses timing, which is a thing I learned. That Black Rose is a when you can. Yu-Gi-Oh! So he ends up going for Moonlight Black Rose Dragon to bounce the Sarvis back to my hand, and I eventually have Fenrir get rid of that. and then he summons in the red Tenpai, which is an activated effect. Yeah, so no, Sarvis tagged in the Fenrir off that activated effect. Regardless, he summons another monster, and this triggers Blessing to summon Sarvis back down again, and he can't answer it and also kill me. And he knows that by this point I'll be able to just get him on the next turn because I've got Barrier, Trap, Blessing with like Fenrir in. No, not Fenrir. With Fenrir on board, he can't get through all of that, so he just scoops. So there's that. So next round is up against Snake Eyes Fire King. I win the die roll, go first, set up an adequate board, and he can't crack it. Game 2, he sets up a board. I can't quite crack it. And what happened here? Yeah, no, I can't quite crack it. I end up losing. I get killed. And then game 3, I set up an okay board, but more importantly, I opened with Ghost Mourner and the Trap card, so I've got like my basic Voiceless board, but Mourner and Trap, and he ends up summoning Diabellstar, which I hit with Mourner, and time is not about 5 minutes away, so he has to try and crack my board, and while also keeping life up, and it gets to a point where I use the Trap to pop the Diabellstar to make him take 2,500 damage, and he can't make up that life point difference and scoops. Then round 4, I was up against Labyrinth. And this was the guy, he was currently undefeated. We were both undefeated at the time, actually. But he wins the die roll, goes first, sets up. Labyrinth's like full setup is just really hard for this deck to crack game 1. And if you let Labyrinth get going, you can't beat it. And yeah, that's basically what happens. Like I try and like do a little bit, but like I can't respond to stuff. He's ripping cards on my hand. Eventually he flips up the barrier, and it's like, well, I can't play through this, so I scoop. Game 2, I get to go first. I set up Skull Guardian through. I set up my board through a Bestial, I think. I just know that I eventually flipped there can only be one, and that mattered a lot because it kept him on only one Lady Labyrinth on the board, and I was eventually able to beat over it and break his board and kill him. So game 3, no, he scoops because he knows he can't break it, and he'll just elects to go to game 3 to try and get me there. And yeah, he does. He opens very strongly, and like from what my friend was telling me, he opened a really insane hand. And I can definitely tell because he had D barrier. He hit the Ruma Cannon off of Backjack, which was unfortunate, and then eventually he eventually got Transaction Rollback in the graveyard too, with D barrier in the graveyard, I should point out. So I can't clear through all that. I have no choice but to just scoop it up. Disappointing. Labyrinth is just not a deck I like to play against. But I at least made it a competitive fight. Ground after that was up against the Yubel pile, my first time playing against that ever. Yeah, game 1, I ended up losing just because like I'm learning how this deck plays for the first time, and like my main deck, game 1 isn't really quite prepped for it. And like Nightmare Throne and Nightmare Pain together are just annoying for my deck, which relies on a 4100 beater to win a lot of like the game states. So yeah, I eventually just get my board cleared, and then he super follows me too, because that's a fair card. I got super polished a couple times during this tournament. So yeah, he super polished my board, summons Trains, and kills me. Game 2, I go first. I get the setup better. I ogre his field spell to stop something, and then I have Cosmic Cyclone for Nightmare Pain, and I learned pretty quickly that it's the spells and traps that Yubel has that lets that deck play very well, so get rid of those, and it goes a long way, so I end up winning that one. And then game 3, he goes first, but I open with Ash Blossom for his Samsara D Lotus 2 turns in a row, so he just can't get going while I am, and I eventually just kill him. So that was the one. I think that was the one where I SP Little Knight followed by Dynamondo to just rip the board apart. Yeah, because ISP shuffles banish something, and then the Dynamondo shuffle gets rid of something, and then it just goes from there. So yeah, I win that one. Round 6 was against Purely. This one was unfortunate because my opponent got deck checked earlier in the day, and he was given a warning for the condition of his outer sleeves. He was double sleeved because he's got OCG sleeves, and I'm going to assume that a good amount of his outer sleeves were like nicked up in a way where like they look like they're marked, but they're not. You know what I mean, right? And I guess his solution to this was, and this is just all my guessing here, but I think what happened was he tried swapping his sleeves for his main deck with sleeves with his extra and side deck, which were likely less beat up, but it still wasn't enough. And after this deck check, because we got the deck check, of course, he got the game loss. So we immediately go to game 2, and I don't know what he's on. He elects to go first. I had the option to side, but I'm like, I should probably at least see what he's on before I make that decision. And he goes on to, yeah, he's on Purely. So he starts with the one that searches 3 random, so it's 2 sleepy memory and 1 that's not. And I hit the one that's not, which is pretty important because, you know, if you can stop them from stacking multiple sleepy memories, that's fantastic. So he summons eventually the black Purely, and I ash that because like he's already whiffed as far as like his getting sleepy memories, and I know his hand is getting pretty low, so I figure I negate the black one from searching like the trap so he can't get to a big noir. He eventually summons the white one, and he hits something off of that, and he makes a plump with a good amount of materials, but he's not able to get to noir, which is fine by me because my hand is pretty cracked. It's Fenrir plus Diviner plus other stuff, and he has no hand traps, so I just go completely off. I summon Fenrir, I make Chaos Angel, I do other stuff, and I OTK him. Like yeah. Unfortunate because to get hit with the game 1 loss and then immediately get OTK'd afterwards. I just straight up apologized to the guys. Like, I'm sorry, man. He's like, yeah, it's okay. So that happened. And then the last round was against Snake Eyes Melodious. Lost a die roll to that one. And game 1, I think I only had just an Ash. And 1 Ash is not enough against that deck. So I eventually lose that one. Game 2, go first, set up my board. I think he had 1 hand trap, but one hand trap, depending on the hand, is not enough for Voiceless either. And so I set up my full board. He can't break through it all, so game 3. And then game 3... Oh yeah, that's right. All 3 games, I opened with Withdrawal and Lockbird. Game 1, he had Called By. Game 2, he didn't. Game 3, he didn't, but he's going first, so he's still able to set up an adequate board. And he's got hand traps of his own for when I try and crack the board. And I'm forced to go Dynamondo to try and like completely rid the board, and then like pass on that and hope it gets there. It doesn't because he's got Bell for the Dynamondo, which leaves me with an open board, and he's able to just summon a full board and kill me. So yep, that's how the day ended. And that guy ended up going on to first place because he was undefeated, whereas I was X1 at the time. And then the Labyrinth player had only lost to that guy as well, so he was X1, and it went from there. As far as the rest of the top deck goes, we had 3 Snake Eyes. The Ubel player I played against, I think he was 8th. We had a Drytron finish 7th, which was pretty funny to see, because like you'd think people would not play Drytron, especially with Voiceless Voice being present, but Drytron is still a deck that is very much intimidating when it goes off, because the thing was Drytron, what's the best way to describe it? Drytron is good depending on the environment, as certain hand traps don't do a whole lot to it versus certain other hand traps. And if you're in a tournament where most of the prominent played hand traps are Ogre, Ash, and Imperm, Drytron does not care. Okay, no. Ogre on Mu Beta actually is kind of sucky, but like, well, the Mu Beta is basically the one card in the combo where those hand traps are good, but Alpha, Zeta, Delta, and such forth, they don't care about those cards. It's just Ash, Bell, and Droll that the Drytrons were, and Bystials. So, yeah, that was the thing to see. I thought he was on Voiceless Drytron, but it was just pure. There was a Melodious Voiceless voice close to the top tables, but he ended up bubbling out. And there were a couple other Voiceless players, but I ended up finishing the highest of them all. I was the only Voiceless in Top Cut. And what else got in there? I'm trying to remember what the third place deck was. Nope, I can't remember off the top of my head. So, yeah, that was that. As far as like what changes I would make to this deck following this, as far as the main goes, I don't know. The Drolls I can probably cut locally because I think I have less players that play in the Droll here than at that regionals. The Fenrirs could also maybe be cut for Nib because I think we have more players that play into it. Or maybe I'll main Bystials because we have like 2 to 3 Labyrinth players at my locals as well. So I think the Mourners are definitely going to be coming out for Bells or Bystials, maybe even both. Droplet's probably going to stay. Cosmics will definitely stay. These will probably stay because we have a lot of things. Tempai, Branded, Pendulum, Dark Magician. I'll probably put Pendulum Graph Dragon into the main though, just because he's better locally. Sword Soul, we have a couple people on that. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, right, that's a thing. I could also main Tactics, because the Fenrirs were actually Triple Tactics talent the day before, but then Ryan pointed out that Tactics is nice, except for when you get impermed, and then you're just staring at the dead talents, whereas at least Fenrir, you have that as an option. So maybe he'll stay. Might actually look into like picking up unicorns to try and play a version of this deck that has Birth as well. But yeah, I think it's probably Droll in the main and Mourner in the side that I'll probably change. I also kind of want to experiment with Super Polymerization because it seems really strong again, especially with Melodious being present. As now you have another deck that Super Poly can just wreck. Because, you know, multiple light fairy monsters, that's an easy Garula if I ever saw one. What else is there? And then I might experiment with the Melodious build or the Branded build. Yeah, we'll just give my final thoughts in a moment. So that sums up the deck profile and the report and things I would change. All in all, I'm pretty happy with how this deck performed. It's Voiceless Voice, i.e. Ritual, Sword Soul, Ritual, Invoke. Like, it's a deck that's not really known for like the highest of ceiling plays. It still has like some plays that are considered big brain, and it's obviously like more higher ceiling than like its brethren, as any deck from like 2024 would be compared to a deck released in 2021, 2022. There is definitely, I think, room for this deck to like grow a little bit. It just comes down to like what you play outside of your original engine. The fact that you can slot in branded cards or Melodious cards is pretty cool, and like this deck I feel is a safe pick for a Gabal too, because I can't see Voiceless Voice being hit directly on the ban list anytime soon, as it's not the best. It will probably never be the best deck, just a top deck. It'll be a lot like how Sword Soul was good for a good while and now has just kind of started dipping and dipping as just stronger decks come out. I see Voices being in that spot where by late 2025, early 2026 is when this deck will just be considered like tier 3 without ban list hits. So I think Voices will probably be good going into for the rest of this year. So I'll probably be going back to this when I'm not on other decks. Yeah, I don't regret like picking this over, say, Tempai. I did consider it for a second there, as I obviously own a Trident Dragon because, you know, Edison format deck, and I played Trident Dragon back during the day, so I could at least do that. But I also hadn't played with Trident Dragon with Tempai yet, whereas Voiceless I've been on since it came out. So I've just been grinding with this deck and feel more comfortable with it, and yeah, it paid off, guys. Like, it just felt good in my hands, much like how Necros and Thunder Dragon did. And not much to really say. Like, I guess I just round it out with some shoutouts, I guess. Shoutouts to my friends Nord and Matt, who I went on the trip with. It was definitely an experience going to Calgary. And on that note, I guess shout out to Calgary. This was my first time visiting it. It's a lot more like Regina than I thought it'd be. Right down to the type of drivers that are around. If you know, you know. Shout outs to the Side Deck for hosting the tournament. They have been a great help in getting regionals to places in Canada, especially the West. I hope they said that they are coming back to Saskatchewan for, I think, Infinite Forbidden. Because like there's no more regionals in this area for Laid. So it'll be for info format where they return. So we'll see what I play at that one. I don't know if I'm gonna try and go for Voiceless a third time. I might try something else then, maybe something spicy now that I got the mat. I kind of want to play like some kind of Thunder Dragon pile, but I also don't own Insettis, and I don't want to spend the money on Insettis at the moment, so maybe I'll pick up Branded and learn it, because as much as people like to shit on Branded, it's actually a good deck, seeing as it has not been hit directly on the ban list, and even if Sanctifier gets banned, I think Branded would still probably be a good deck if nothing else gets touched, so why not? I am only one clan short of having an optimized Branded deck, because, yeah, so there's that. Final shoutouts to the YouTubers, the Game Knights and Dead Draw. They were both present at the regionals. I did deck profiles for both of them, so I'll link those in the description. It's cool being in the presence of some other tubers. Which is, it's funny because like I'm technically a tuber as well. I've had this channel for what, 13 years now, and like my actual time playing the game is definitely at the, I can't say I've been playing like for the full 20 plus years, because like I took a couple of years break, but like yeah, I've been playing this game for the better part of the last 20 years. So like as far as like the Yu-Gi-Oh and the Yugi-Tubi community is concerned, I'm technically a fossil at this point, which is weird to say, but yeah, I definitely kind of feel it sometimes. Like as far as seeing how the game is, like I won't say I'm winding down in like my time playing the game. I guess you could liken this more to like a late career resurgence, kind of like, if we'll make a comparison to wrestling, Sheamus after Clash of the Castle, where you have like that one, like that big moment. It's like, man, I'm back in this. That's kind of how I feel after I got that invite with Mikanko, because I hadn't gotten an invite since before COVID, and following COVID, it'd been a good while. So yeah, I definitely feel like I'm kind of getting back to where I was a couple years ago, and yeah, this is going to be an interesting like run on until like, because I can see myself maybe like considering winding down and quitting the game within the next 3 to 5 years. We'll see where it goes. I say that, but then every time I consider like stopping, Konami always like releases a ritual archetype, or the first time around they released support for Red Eyes, then the second time around they released the ritual archetype. But more importantly, when I consider quitting again, they made Thunder Dragons an actual deck. I'm like, oh, I'm in on this. And then they've released like ritual decks like Drytron and Mikanko, and now this. So it's like Konami's actually like making stuff that pique my interest, and so I've had like pills to swallow, more or less. So anyway, I'm rambling at this point, and let's just wrap up this video by saying I hope you guys enjoyed this, and until the next time, this is Bluestar899 jacking out.